Okay, welcome everyone to a new episode of Technique Tuesday. This week we're going to be looking at how to maximize development of the triceps by modifying our shoulder position in two ways. Now you guys will remember that in my last video on the triceps, we discussed the skull crusher, explaining that because it puts the shoulder in a highly flexed position, the long head is placed under a large degree of stretch. Now we can contrast this with an exercise like the bench press, where the shoulder is only flexed to 90 degrees, which according to the strengthandconditioning.com database, may actually be the ideal shoulder position for optimizing activation of the long head. So of course the bench press will be a staple for overall triceps development, and I'd recommend watching my bench press Technique Tuesday video for more on that. But here I want to cover two other triceps exercises that are going to hit the triceps from a more extended and even hyperextended shoulder position. And the reason shoulder position matters is that it's going to vary how much contribution is coming from the long head versus the lateral head. The long head sits on the inside of the arm, and it's responsible for making your arms look much bigger from the back, while a well-developed lateral head is going to give your arm that horseshoe shape from the side. And because the long head is a biarticular muscle, meaning it crosses both the elbow joint and the shoulder joint, if you modify the shoulder position, you can adjust how much the long head gets involved as you extend the elbow. And while biomechanical reasoning would suggest that the long head should be more active with the shoulder in a more flexed position, such as with a skull crusher, and the lateral head should be more active in a more extended position, such as a tricep press down, EMG results are mixed, meaning the most sensible advice is to use a variety of different shoulder positions to maximize overall triceps development. So because we've already covered the flexed position, I want to start here with an extended shoulder position using the tricep press down. Now first, my preferred attachment for these is a straight bar or easy bar, whichever you find to be more comfortable on your wrists. And I like the bar over a rope simply because it allows you to overload more heavily. Now, because the rope isn't as stable as the metal bar, most people simply won't be able to load it as heavily, resulting in less overall tension on the triceps. Now on the flip side, one of the advantages of the rope is that it does seem to cue people to squeeze their triceps better at the bottom, which might help them reach a stronger peak contraction and mind-muscle connection. Still, I'd say that as long as you control the movement squeezing at the bottom, you should be able to get this same effect from the bar as well. Now, another option that I really like is the single arm press down, where you grasp the cable head itself, allowing you to focus on one tricep at a time, which can be helpful for preventing strength and size asymmetries. Also, unlike the straight bar, this way you can slightly extend the shoulder at the bottom to get an extremely strong peak tricep contraction. But for now, let's just roll with the basic bread and butter easy bar tricep press down. So you want to set the cable up so that the bar hangs at about eye level. Setting it up too low can prevent you from reaching a full range of motion at the top, and setting it up too high can make getting the bar into that starting position more difficult than necessary, wasting energy for no reason. You want to grab the bar using an overhand grip, and a common error is to use an underhand or reverse grip. Unlike the biceps, the triceps can't contribute to supination, so taking an underhand grip is only going to reduce the amount of weight you can use, lessening tension on the triceps with no advantage. So using a roughly shoulder width grip, you want to pin your elbows in against your sides, which is going to help prevent the pecs from taking over. Pull the bar down into position, at which point your forearms should be making contact against your biceps in this starting position, so your elbow is fully flexed. Take a step back from the cable machine and hinge your hips forward, which is going to keep your hips from getting in the way of full lockout at the bottom. And think about squeezing your triceps to move the weight down as you pull your elbows slightly back as well. Because the long head contributes to shoulder extension, allowing the elbows to move slightly forward and backward is going to get the long head more involved. Now, obviously you don't want to exaggerate this cue to the point that you start using your lats more than your triceps, but slight elbow travel is fine if it helps you engage the long head more. Once you reach the bottom position, actively squeeze your triceps and then reverse the motion under control, allowing the bar to come up and slightly forward. The elbows should only move a few inches forward, and only if you find that cue to be helpful. Otherwise, they can stay perfectly locked into position at your sides. For easy bar press downs, I prefer to use more moderate weight, something in the 6 to 12 rep range. Whereas for rope and single arm press downs, because they're more mind muscle connection focused, I like to use higher reps, more in the 10 to 20 rep zone. Now, I would say the most common error that I see with the press down is turning it into too much of a full upper body press. It's common to see people get over top of the bar and use their pecs and front delts to literally bench press the weight down. And while this will allow you to move more weight overall, it's simply going to shift emphasis away from the triceps and onto the other pressing muscles, which can be better targeted through a better exercise like the bench press, for example. It's also common to see people stay too upright here, which is not only going to limit tension on the triceps at the top, but also reduce range of motion at the bottom. So rather than standing perfectly upright, you want to hinge slightly forward at the hips so you can press the bar all the way down, completing the full range of motion. So we've covered the flexed and extended shoulder positions. Now I want to cover the hyperextended shoulder position, where the arm is placed back behind the torso. And you can try this out for yourself here. If you take your arm from out in front of you and bring it back behind you, you should feel your long head contract and get quite hard as you hyperextend. So while the kickback won't place the long head under a high degree of stretch at any point in the range of motion, it will reach the strongest possible contraction at full extension. And if you perform it properly, the contraction should be so strong, it's almost painful. Now, while you can do kickbacks with dumbbells, and that works fine because of the circular resistance path, your triceps will experience maximum tension at the top, which will then decrease until there's zero tension at the bottom. And you can contrast this with cables, where there's more consistent tension throughout the range of motion. And you can use a D handle here, or one end of a rope, but I prefer to just grip the cable head itself for a more stable feel. Grab the handle and pull it into position by your side so that your elbow is locked at about a 90-degree angle. And from here, you want to simultaneously squeeze your triceps to move the weight back as you simultaneously move your elbow back, forcing your shoulder into that more hyperextended position so that at the top, you can see that your arm has extended back behind your torso. This is going to force the long head to contract through an active range of motion at the elbow and at the shoulder at the same time. And once you reach the top, reverse the motion under control, allowing the elbow to bend as the shoulder comes slightly forward. You can also do these standing with a more upright torso, as long as you're putting the shoulder in that hyperextended position at the bottom. The tension curve may be slightly worse for the triceps here, but some trainees may find it to be much more comfortable. And here I like to use slightly higher reps as well, something more in the 10 to 20 rep zone. And because it's more of a concentric focused movement without as much of a stretch, it's ideal for intensity techniques like drop sets and myo reps, as delayed onset muscle soreness shouldn't be too much of a recovery concern. Now, I would say the most common error that I see with the kickback is actually not hyperextending the shoulder, turning it into just a standard tricep extension. You want to remember that what makes the kickback unique is the fact that you're placing the shoulder behind the torso, providing the strongest possible contraction at the top. If your shoulder is just staying in line with your torso, then you're basically just doing a standard press down, which is fine, but defeats the entire purpose of the kickback. So guys, that is all that I have for the press down and the kickback. I hope you guys found it to be helpful.